We have the pleasure of meeting today with Stephen A. Douglas, who just got some legislation passed allowing Kansas and Nebraska to be allowed into the Union. Ms. Throbbins, could you find Senator Douglas, please? Thank you. Hello, Senator Douglas. Edward Softwater with A.N.N. Please, have a seat. I understand you got some negotiations done today.
Yes, and how do you do? I guess you could say I introduced popular sovereignty into Kansas. That is, the right of the people to decide their own style of government, whether they want slavery or not.
I see. How did all this start?
Well, you see, I was the chairman of the Senate Committee on Territories, and I wanted a federal land grant for a railroad from Chicago to California. It would be built above the Missouri Compromise line, the 36° 30, which was designated free soil in 1821. The House passed the bill, but the Senate did not.
Sounds like there was trouble, right?
Yep, I needed more support to get it through the Senate. A group of senators living on F Street, calling themselves the F Street Mess, was headed by a senator named David Atchison. They were opposed to free soil, and he said he would see Nebraska sink in hell before voting for it.
Oh, I know the head maid at the F Street boarding house. Her name's Emily. Maybe she can put a good word in for you.
Oh, no, ma'am. You'll have us in a war between the Northern Railroad men and the Southern senators. They made it clear to me that I would have to have Congress repeal the ban on slavery and place slaveholders and non-slaveholders on an equal footing. In January this year, I submitted a bill to admit Kansas based on popular sovereignty, and it failed. The F Street gang confronted President Pierce with an ultimatum to repeal the ban on slavery or lose the South, and the president caved into them.
Well, then what happened?
The bill passed with my cleverness, repealing the Missouri line on slavery, and the House passed the bill 115 to 104, and it separated the Northern Democrats and Whigs from the South, and President Pierce signed it today.
All right, so then that means there was no opposition.
Well, the only real vocal opponent is this Congressman Abraham Lincoln, who said that this Kansas-Nebraska Act is nothing but saying that if one man chooses to enslave another, no third man shall be allowed to object.
Interesting way of putting it. If one man chooses to enslave another, then no third man should be allowed to object.
I happen to agree with the congressman. You think you're pretty clever, don't you? But you don't fool me. You sold out your friends and the Democratic Party. You're not going to heaven. Praise the Lord.
Miss Throttles, don't antagonize him. He did what every good representative has to do. He compromised and made some deals.
Volumes 1 through 10 on the road to the abolition of slavery. Volumes 1 and 2. Introduction on the road to the abolition of slavery. Slavery explained in the words, writing, and songs of contemporary politicians, abolitionists, slaves, pro-slavery advocates, and others. Volume 3. Politics on the road to the abolition of slavery. The institution of slavery and how it was written into the U.S. Constitution. Volume 4. Heroes and Heroines on the road to the abolition of slavery. Liberated from the shackles of slavery, countless slaves made extraordinary contributions to society. Volume 5. Obstacles on the road to the abolition of slavery. Slavery culturally entrenched and protected by religious, political, and social obstacles. Volume 6. Martyrs on the road to the abolition of slavery. People black and white gave their lives in the fight for freedom from slavery. Volume 7. Kidnappers and Justice on the road to the abolition of slavery. The law protected slavery, and the scales of justice were in favor of the slave owners. Harriet Beecher Stowe, The Evil of Slavery. Stowe reveals the people and the conditions that inspired her explosive novel about slavery and life in the South. Volume 8, The Legacy of What Slavery Left Behind. War-ravaged people struggle to rebuild their society and come to terms with the repercussion of slavery after the Civil War. Volume 9, Those Dedicated Angels on the Road to the Abolition of Slavery. Recognizing the work of 12 abolitionists whose extraordinary dedication helped to free the enslaved, these are the people who fought for a higher standard of mankind. Volume 10, coming soon, summer 2013. The Beginning of Slavery, Indentured Servants and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Colonial plantations needed labor, more orphans, loose women, convicts, and Quakers than the Old World could send as indentured servants. So the colonists looked to Africa, and the transatlantic slave trade thrived for 450 years.